Okay, we're going to open up Solidworks again. And today we're going to learn to make some features on a boss for printing. So let's start a new project, click part, we'll say OK. So let's pretend that this will be our top plane. This will be a plane that we're going to be using for our print. Let's create a rectangle boss, but we'll make a center rectangle. So we'll click this one, click in the center on the origin, and bring that out. So this is our rectangle. We will go to Smart Dimension, and here you can pick how big you want to make your rectangular boss. So let's just say 4 inches tall, and let's call it 5 inches wide. Okay, now we'll say okay, everything's black, which is good. How far do we want to extrude this? Let's say 1/4 of an inch, so that's 0.25. And we'll say okay. And yeah, we'll start okay. Okay, so now we have this could be what the features are placed on. So we'll create some more bosses on this face. A good easy way to look at change your view is to push the space bar, and brings up this orientation, which is basically just this window. So space bar brings it up, and if you click normal, it brings up the view that you're if you're in a sketch, it'll bring up the normal view. So here let's make a face. So we'll make use the circle, and we'll make a circle for the eye, and let's make that we'll do the Smart Dimension. Let's make it 1 inch. Okay, let's also we want to dimension this from probably the center of this piece. So let's make a center line from here and straight up, and we can hit escape or double click. So if you notice, I drew that line and it went black immediately. That's because I picked the origin, which is a known reference point, and I snapped to the middle of this line, which is also a known reference point. So if you go from reference point to reference point, it's going to automatically assume that it wants to snap to, that you want it to snap to those points. So that's immediately black. So now let's pick Smart Dimension. We'll click on the center of the circle to the center line. Okay, so that is let's make it 1.25 inches. Okay, that looks good. So then we want it still blue, so let's dimension it from the center of the circle to the top line, and that is 1 inch. Okay, so now we have one eye. So let's just click OK. There's a couple ways to do this. We could draw another circle here and create more dimensions, but then if you ever want to change it, you have to change many dimensions every time you want to change the face. So let's assume we want to say both eyes to be the same distance from the center. Let's say OK. So we're going to create this feature. Let's just make it 1/2 inch for now, because it's 1/2 inch. And let's say we want to make this edge round for now. Okay, so one way to do that is to create a fillet. Fillet just means a rounded edge. Okay, so just a couple ways. You can click on the fillet button, and then you click on the edge that you want to fillet, and say OK. And that's and it'll round that edge. If we want to do it a different way, let's delete that. We can say pick the face. If you pick a face, it'll round all the edges that's touching that face. So we can even pick the face first and then the fillet button, and it'll automatically put that face in here and say OK. And to do this does the same thing. We can also cancel. We can also, if you right click and click this button to edit the feature, we can change the size of the fillet. So let's say we make it a little bit bigger and say okay. So then you see it's a little bit bigger, but we have to be careful. If you make it too big, let's say we make it 1 inch, it won't work because there's not enough room to make it that big, right? So let's go back and make it point. Let's see if that works. That looks okay. We can change it later if we want. Now, instead of doing the same thing over here, we can use this feature called mirror. Okay, so we say mirror, and we pick the plane that we want it to mirror. So if it's, we want that other eye over here, so we'll pick the right plane. So it's going to make a copy of features that you want to mirror across from this plane. So we can select the boss and the fillet to create this eye over here and say okay. So now you've got 2 eyes. And the neat thing about this is if you change the dimension here, and you can change dimensions by double clicking on the feature itself, and you can see it'll pull up. This is the 0.25 radius of this fillet. Here, if you change it here, and let's change it to 0.1, say okay, and then we refresh. Now it changes both eyes in the same time, so you don't have to do it multiple times, right? So we can change that back to something larger if you want. So make it a bigger size. That makes it however you like it. So there's some 2 eyes. Now let's see how we want to make, let's say, a mouth. So let's go to sketch. We're going to enter sketch mode, and because we already selected that surface, that's the plane that it's going to be used as our reference. So we can hit the spacebar again. Now we're normal to that view. Let's see, what's a good way to make a smile? So let's pick this one. So this is looks like a 3-point arc slot. So it says 1, 2, and the third click is in the middle. So let's give it a try. So let's say we want the smile here. This is the second one and third one in the middle. So we can make a happy face or a sad face. Let's make a happy face. So that's my third point. So that's creating my arc, right? So 1, 2, 3 was creating the first arc. Then when I move my mouse, so how big I want the smile to be, or this slot to be. This is a slot feature. Okay, so if I click it again here, I create a slot. So I should click the check mark. Now I've got a smiley face. It's blue right now, but I want it to be black. So I can do this a couple ways. One, let's make the center point. We'll click on this and we'll control click on the origin, and we'll call it make it vertical. Okay, so now this point and this point will be vertical. So now I can't move this point sideways. It's always going to go up or down. Okay. Then if I click this point and control click this point, oops, I'll click one point, control click the other point. It's not doing what I want it to do. Let's see. Well, let's say we can make this point actually, yeah, and this point. Let's call that one vertical. So now the smile will always be centered. All right. So this point is saying this is the center point of this arc, or part of the circle, right? So this center point is vertical with this one, and then this center point always has to move up and down too, right? So I can change the way the smile looks. So we still need to give it some dimensions so that it turns all the way black. So let's just call it like that. Let's click Smart Dimension. Let's dimension this one. We'll call this, let's say 1.5. Okay. Then we need to dimension maybe this, let's say 0.5. Okay. Now let's see what else is moving. Oh, it can still move up and down, and still can go like this. Okay, so Let's give this a distance. We'll call this from this center point to this point, 0.5. Now it's starting to turn black, right? So now, what else can we do? This is still can move on like this, right? So let's dimension an angle. So I want to make this an angle. Let's go to center line, which is basically like a reference line. We'll go click on one end. Let's click to the center of that circle and click to this other end. So, alright, and hit escape or double click. Let's dimension this angle from here to here. So that looks like it should be about 90. We'll click at 90. Now we have the smiley face. So all these dotted ones are just for reference. They're not going to be actually part of our sketch that is extruded. Only the black lines, solid black lines, will be extruded. You'll see once I hit OK and extrude. So now we can select this sketch, go to features, click on extrude boss or base. So you can see now we have the mouth coming out. So now it's let's make this, we'll call it 0.3, so the mouth doesn't stick out as much. We can change it if we don't like it. So now we have our mouth. Let's make it so the mouth is a little bit open. So this is a couple of new features. So let's select this surface, and we'll go back to sketch again, click on sketch. I'm recording for you guys to learn later. So then I'm going to click normal, and then I want to say let's use this tool. It's called offset entities. So if I click this, it basically takes the entity you selected and offsets it, and you can keep selecting all the way around like this until it creates another line that's the distance that you tell it away from the original. So let's make this 0.15 and see what that looks like. Maybe even larger. You can click on this arrow to go a little bit larger. Let's try that. So that's 0.35. We'll say OK. So now, rather than having to redraw that, we can just offset it, and it's just one dimension that we have to change to make it look different later. So let's click OK. Everything's black. It looks good. Now, instead of making it extrude, we're going to say an extruded cut. So we'll click on the extruded cut button. It works the same way, but instead of creating material, it takes material away. So we can leave it at 0.3. Say OK. So now it's taken out the middle of the mouth part, where we had the extruded cut. Okay, so we can change that too. If we double click on the extruded cut, we see that how deep it is. So let's say we don't want it as deep. Let's call it 0.2 and hit the refresh button. And so that's a little bit not as deep. Okay, so play around with it and see if you can make a face that you like. Maybe try adding a nose. See what that looks like.